Welcome back. I have a very special guest on the show today. That's I thought I would have to twist her arm, but it didn't take much. This is a young lady that I worked with in therapy. She was a client of mine many years ago, and we had a real journey together. We've gone our separate ways for about 4 years now, and she's continued to grow. And I've really appreciated her checking in and letting me know how she's doing, and absolutely thriving. It was a great working relationship that we had, and it was wonderful watching her grow through it all, and she definitely did grow. This is Claire Bluett from Cheltenham in the UK, and after we finished working together, we also landed in a choir together, and she was in on a different day in a different choir, but we all had a big concert. And there was a moment when we were in this huge the Cheltenham Town Hall. It was a great big venue, beautiful acoustics, beautiful place. And Claire had to stand up in front of hundreds of people and talk to the crowd. You'd written a poem. That's right, wasn't it? A poem, and read it out. But I was absolutely gobsmacked by the ability of this young lady to hold an audience, the eloquence that came out of her mouth, the feeling. Everybody was there with their mouths open, and I felt very, very proud. And just think you're a bit of a rising star. So I'm really happy that you are wanting to come on the show today. We are going to talk about another topic today, which is you are a member somewhere in the fold of a very large family of all girls. Poor dad. During the time that we were working together, your mum was going through treatment with cancer. So there was a lot for you to deal with. And it now transpires that your sister is going through the treatment too. So today we're going to interweave between the dynamics of being part of a large fold and also how you've all managed that very difficult time. So welcome to the show, Claire. Nice to have you back. And who would have thought we would one day be doing this across the water? So, for the listeners, would you, tell us about yourself and your.
So, I grew up down in Cornwall, so middle of nowhere, lots of fields, 20 minutes from the sea, with 5 sisters and mum and dad. So we were, quite a big family. I then moved to Cheltenham, Gloucester area when I did my first degree. So that was in early childhood studies, and always with the intention that I'd go back to Cornwall once I'd finished my degree, and then finished and got offered a job in a little charity that I'd done a placement at, which I absolutely loved. And so I decided to stay, and I've stayed ever since. So I still work there 2 days a week now, and then I've been qualified 2 years. So 3 years before that, I decided to do a master's in play therapy. So that was a kind of 3-year part-time course, which was quite intense, but very good. And so I now split my time between the children's charity and the play therapy charity, which keeps me busy.
So could you explain what play therapy is?
So play therapy is kind of like the equivalent. If we went to kind of therapy as adults, we would go and we would talk about our experiences and our feelings. Play therapy is a way for children to do that through play, so they don't have to talk about their own stuff. Children just naturally play. So it works really well. It's totally child-led. They kind of lead, we kind of follow. And so, it's just a space for them to explore, revisit, process, rework experiences, but through the safety of play. And I've been qualified for 2 years. Still don't understand how it works, but it does. And it is, sometimes it just feels magical, and the children are amazing and they know what they need to do. They kind of lead you down a path and you're thinking, well, where are we going? And then you're like, oh, this is where we're going. So yeah, they've just got an amazing ability to show us what they need to, but in a way that is safe and a distance for them.
So, we don't need words to be able to express how we feel. We grow into that, don't we? And that's what's then expected of learning how to express. But our bodies and our body language, and subconsciously we explain all the time.
Yeah, and we have lots of different toys that they can kind of do that through, and often it's kind of unconscious processing that's happening, and they think, oh, I've had a really lovely time, but there's so much more going on underneath that they're working through, which is great.
I remember one of the striking ways that you and I worked was words were hard for you at the start, and but you were a very creative person, and drawing and sketching was your way of expressing your emotions. And we had a therapy scrapbook that you brought with the sessions, and that was our way of leading into it. And we filled sessions with these books, didn't we? With these drawings, the interpretation of them, and it was probably one of the most powerful ways of working that I've had. It was wonderful to be able to think outside the box, and you just let your pencils talk.
Yeah. And I think, that words were hard, but I could do the creative stuff. So that was kind of a way to express what I needed without having to find the words to put to it. So yeah, I'd never really thought about that before, but that is essentially play therapy, but just in a different method.
In a grown-up way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd be quite happy to play. I am the biggest child. So give me a box of toys and I'd be well away.
Well, you certainly taught me to not stick to the norms, and taught me that the creative thing is just as powerful. So let's go back to life on the farm.
Yeah.
Tell me about your childhood. What do you remember? Memories come up for you?
I think generally being in a busy house, it was loud. It was busy, chaotic. I remember my parents often saying, good job we don't have neighbours, because we could when we all got together and we were playing, it was noisy. There was a lot of kind of freedom in terms of, okay, open the back door, get out in the garden, go explore, play. We always had people to play with. So we did have friends and stuff over, but actually we didn't really need that because we had a ready-made kind of playground of people to choose from. And if you got grumpy with one sister, you could go and play with another. So there was always kind of people. There was always things going on. There was people coming and going, and I just remember play being a massive thing. And my mum looked after kind of all of us, so we went to stay in play groups and things like that. But we didn't kind of go to nurseries where we were dropped off and left. And play was like a highlight. Everything was made playful. We used to have teddy bears picnics on the floor for lunch times, where the sandwiches would be made really small, and just everything was fun and playful. I'm guessing there was a fair amount of kind of order and system in there somewhere to manage to keep us all fed and watered. I do remember there kind of being a production line of doing hair in the morning to get out to school. So I think, my parents had their ways of managing the chaos to keep us, everything done, what we needed to get done. And I think because we lived in the middle of nowhere, we could just kind of get out, explore, we could walk across fields and be amongst the animals. And I think being in nature was a big thing. We also had, although there was kind of a lot of us as siblings, my mum was one of 7, so we had a lot of cousins as well, and so we would spend a lot of time like going to visit aunties and cousins and playing. So we had a big family like unit as us, but then we had a big extended family as well.
And they would come to you, or because Dad
Yes,
was the farmer, wasn't he?
he was.
He
Yeah,
couldn't really leave.
yeah. Sometimes they came to us. Sometimes like we'd go with Mum to them. Dad kind of worked a lot, and so Mum did kind of the main share of kind of parenting. So we'd often go out and do stuff with Mum, and especially I think probably not so much when we were younger, but kind of moving towards like older primary school. My granddad used to help a lot on the farm, but as he's got older, Dad needed to do more stuff. So I remember more times from then on that kind of Dad would stay behind and we'd go and do stuff with Mum, and Mum would then call in an auntie to come and chat to, so she had some adult company.
So that was a lot of undertaking for Mum to manage a farmhouse, 5 girls, keeping you occupied, keeping you fed.
6 girls in the end. But
6 girls, yeah. And so Dad, how do you think Dad?
I mean, his first child, he wanted it to be a girl, so we're like, well, you then got 6. I mean, he would openly say he loved it. I think he spent a lot of time on the farm, came in for different bits and bobs, so I think that's how he coped. Getting outside, getting away from all the girls and the chaos that sometimes that brought, but working crazily hard at the same time to kind of meet all of our needs. Which
Sorry, carry on. I'll wipe that. You finish.
I don't think I kind of recognized that. Obviously, when you're younger, you don't really think about all those things about money, and actually you have to work to earn money, and for all those lovely things. But like he was doing a lot for us and spending a lot of hours working a lot. Like I just have a memory of him working a lot and being tired, but he was kind of doing that for us, and so that we had what we needed. And money was tight, but it's really hard to make a lot of money when you're a little farm. And obviously there was 6 of us, but we never not had what we needed. Like school trips and stuff, we didn't really want to go on them because we hated being away from home. But if we had, the money would have been there. We all had music lessons. We did so much stuff. We all did ballet lessons, and everything was kind of paid for. But actually, as I've got older, I've recognised that took a lot of juggling of finances and work. And I think my mum always used to feel kind of guilty that she couldn't give us, the latest this, that, or something else at Christmas. But actually, we had so much, but in a different way. And my mum loves celebrations. So celebrations were always a really big thing. And we were really happy with having, a Father Christmas stocking full of pajamas and bubble bath. But we didn't need all the other stuff. But I think my mum felt guilty about that at times. And, we didn't really go on big holidays. And again, I think that's something that she would have liked to be able to do. But I didn't feel like I was missing out. So, I think that's my mum's, what she would have loved to be able to give more than what we didn't have.
Well, a mother's pot of love is bottomless, but the pot of guilt that mothers carry too is huge, always wanting to be able to give more and do more. But it sounds like she gave as much as she can, if not more.
Mm-hmm.
In other ways.
She's totally that, being a mum is her thing. And so we are, it was that analogy of being little chicks in a nest and mum being in the middle. And she would, and still would, do anything for us. Like if anything goes wrong, she's like, come home, I'll sort it. That was her thing, being a mum, and she was great at it.
So there are 6 of you. Do you want to go through the order?
So testing my age remembrance. So Vicky is the oldest, she's 35. And then there's Stacey, who I currently live with. She is 33. Then there's me, I'm 31. Then there's a set of twins, that are 25, maybe. And then Zoe is the youngest, and she is 20. So maybe the twins are 26. So there's quite a big age gap between the top and bottom.
And so you now live with the second born. Sorry, what's her name again?
Stacey.
And if you look at the dynamics of all of you, that's a lot of personalities. That's very different age groups and different needs. How do you think you all knit?
I think when we were younger and we all lived at home, we obviously clashed because, there's a lot of us in one house and we all shared rooms and things like that. Although, you can have the best deep and meaningful conversations before you fall asleep at night. There was obviously times when we didn't get on. I think since we've all kind of scattered and we all live in different places, we are kind of closer because we catch up when we catch up rather than being in each other's space all the time. Yeah, and I guess there's probably like some people that you would naturally check in with kind of more than others, but equally I know that I could go to any of them. So there's, maybe a couple sisters that if I was having a drama, I would go to them or message them, but actually I could message any of them. We're all quite close. We have a WhatsApp chat, which is constantly buzzing because there's 6 of us in it. Yeah, and I think all of us have got similar interests, but then got our own stuff as well. So there's a lot of common ground. And yeah, I think one of the things I noticed when Mum was diagnosed with cancer was that for me, it felt like we chatted more about the deep stuff from that point on. So yeah, we are all still very close, even though we've kind of spread out geographically.
And your younger sister, so she's 20, so there's 11-year difference between you two.
Yeah.
I know that you have a close relationship with her.
Yeah, I think she has got like a lot of mums because we're all that much older than her. We've all kind of mummed her as she's gone along.
And now she's 20. Just remember being so young.
Yeah, she came to stay recently and I was like, oh gosh, you're very independent now. Yeah, which is strange.
And you also said that, as you grew up, you didn't need to go out and be with other friends because otherwise Mum would be a taxi consistently. And so you had each other to play with. And you said that also that nobody wanted to leave. It was all very, like a safe haven for you. And as it turns out, you've all... Is there anyone at home now?
Yeah, there is one sister still at home. Zoe has just done her first year at uni, so she's kind of gone back home for the summer. But then there is one other sister that's still at home.
And your experience of moving away?
I wanted to do it. I had a lot of drama about it. I think just that because we'd spent so much time together and at home, I wanted to go. I wanted to go to uni. I wanted to do the course. But equally, the thought of moving away was really hard. So the couple of weeks before I went, I was really anxious and was like, oh gosh, how's this going to be? And then got to the week before and I thought, right, I'm just going to do this. So kind of, was like, yeah, off we go. And kind of being dropped off, my parents took me. And although I was feeling like, oh my gosh, don't leave, equally, I wanted to be okay with doing that transition. So I was like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm okay. I'm really fine. And so they kind of hung around a bit longer than like some of the other parents, but I was like, oh yeah, no, just stay for a bit longer and then go. And when they did go, I felt okay. And then it was the next morning that it hit me. And I mean, that was the first time that I'd ever had my own room. So that was weird. It was weird that there wasn't noise. Like I was in halls, but there wasn't people coming and going and everything was new. New living space, new town, new, it was so different. Cheltenham's very green and lovely, but it was so different to Cornwall. And the next day I felt so homesick and was like, oh gosh, I don't know how to be here. I don't know what I'm doing. But kind of stuck it out. And I think what really helped was the fact that we had a big family wedding 3 weeks in. So that was almost a marker. Like for me, I knew that I was going to do those 3 weeks and then go back for the wedding, which kept me going because I knew I was going home. Coming back from the wedding wasn't quite so straightforward. I cried the whole way back. And I think I'd gone from being kind of getting a bit used to being on my own to going home to being back in that like family bubble, not just with my own family, but with extended family. And then having to come back from that was really tricky. So yeah, that was not a fun journey for my parents.
So it was detaching and then attaching and then having to rip yourself away again.
Yeah, and I think although it kept me going in those first 3 weeks because I knew I was going back, equally it probably made it harder when I went back. And then that next week I had a pretty tough time, just generally, like lots of things happened, which is a whole nother story. And so went back to Cornwall and decided I was never going back to Cheltenham. Just things happened and I was scared of being in Cheltenham. And I was like, no, I'm okay, thanks. I'm going to go back home to Cornwall where it's safe and lovely. But I was equally annoyed that I'd made that break and I'd kind of gone to uni and I was loving the course and I was managing being kind of on my own, and that this kind of event had put me back. So I was really torn between what I wanted to do, what I felt like I should do, what I was kind of aiming for. So I did come back and I went home every weekend for a long time, as my kind of safety of, okay, I can manage Monday to Friday because then I go home. So I think I did that for my first year of, I would do Cheltenham in the week and Cornwall at the weekends, which again, my parents drove me backwards and forwards and to trains and quite often back to Cheltenham at the weekends stuff. So yeah, that kind of got me through that initial move.
Yeah, that difficult first year. And your independence grew and grew as you went through university?
Yeah, I guess so. I think, yeah, we all love being at home, we all love going home, but I kind of started to make a new like life in Cheltenham. So like now people will often say, oh, will you ever go back to Cornwall? And I'm like, well, maybe with some time, but equally I've kind of got more of my life here now than I have there. And I think that happened over time. So obviously when you're kind of at uni, that's one experience. Then when I finished and was then living in Cheltenham, like not as a student, that was kind of a different kind of experience because you're now living here as a working adult rather than in a student bubble. And then I think then another transition, we moved out of kind of the student area into another house. That was almost another kind of transition of independence. So I think I'm pretty independent. Yeah. I mean, I still love chat stuff through, to kind of go back and be looked after. Special occasion weekends and things like that.
Which of course you have a big one coming this weekend.
We do. One of my sisters is getting married, which is the first wedding of all of us. So yeah, that's really exciting. Lots of planning has been going on, and like the sister who's getting married asked us, like, I don't know, probably a year ago, if we would all be bridesmaids, and she said, I can't imagine walking down the aisle without you all like with me, which kind of sums up how we are as sisters. And so I think it will be great. There will be a lot of joy, crying, and it is very exciting.
Well, Mum loves a celebration. I don't think you can get better than that one.
Yeah.
And I know that it hasn't always been easy for Mum. I mean, it sounds like Mum has done a wonderful job, but I know that for many years she's been struggling with fighting cancer. Would you be open to sharing that journey?
She's actually doing really well kind of now. But it was, so I found out at the beginning of 2019. So my mum had been having tests and stuff at the end of 2018, and had tests that wouldn't be getting the results until after Christmas. So she didn't tell any of us what was going on, and kind of held that throughout that Christmas because she wanted us to enjoy Christmas time. So yeah, she kind of knew that something was happening, but she wasn't quite sure what, and then found out in January that she did have cancer, which all of us actually have got like quite a strong faith, and mum totally like pressed into that and was so peaceful. But that was honestly one of our most peaceful Christmases, which, you know, Christmas with 8 people in the house is always a bit crazy. And, you know, everyone wants everything to go well, and we'd have extra family members coming, and you've got to hoover the carpet 6 times just to make sure everything's, you know, spot on. And I was a bit anxious about going back because I kind of didn't want to be in that crazy, just where I was at that time. I didn't want to be in that crazy, chaotic environment. I needed things to be kind of calm and smooth running. But actually, yeah, it was the most peaceful Christmas we've had. And I was chatting to my mum recently about it, actually, and she said, you know, I really wanted it to be good because I didn't know if we'd have another. And so I didn't want kind of what I knew or, you know, was finding out to kind of affect that. And yeah, it was. Yeah, I remember coming back and just going, oh my gosh, that Christmas was so calm. Like, what's happened? And I think maybe that kind of put it all into perspective. Actually, it doesn't matter if this job isn't done or that's not finished, because, you know, at the end of the day, we're all here together, and that's what matters. So yeah, I found out in the January. Mum had come to visit, and she like just very casually said, oh, you know, I've got to go back tomorrow because I'm having another scan, and I've had quite a few, and they think I've got breast cancer. We're still kind of working out what that looks like in terms of treatment. And I think initially I was a bit like, crumbs. I think shock was the first thing, and then fear was the second, because when you hear the word cancer, you just go, oh my gosh, that's big. What does that mean? What's that going to look like? How bad is it? And so that was quite late in the evening, and I remember going to bed and just not really sleeping, and just having all those like what ifs, and how does that look, and what's going to happen, and are you going to be okay, and kind of going through my mind. And I'd wake up, fall asleep, and then wake up and want it to have been a dream, and then realize that it wasn't. So yeah, that was tough. And my younger sister didn't know at the time, because she's got OCD, with like kind of irrational thoughts and things like that. So mum wanted to know the plan of treatment before she told Zoe, so that she could say, this is what's happening, this is what I'm going to have. So she had that bit of kind of certainty. So yeah, we kind of knew and could talk about it to a certain degree as sisters, but we had to kind of hold it a bit until my little sister knew. And then, yeah, things kind of just muddled through. I think I was in a kind of fortunate position because I didn't live at home at the time. I think 3 sisters lived at home. So they kind of saw mum post chemo. They saw her kind of unwell. I mean, my mum managed it amazingly and never complained, and would just come home from chemo and maybe have a nap on the sofa and then get up again. Like, she managed it so well. But I think they saw more of the day-to-day bits and bobs of it, whereas I kind of went and visited on her weeks between chemo when she kind of picked up a bit. I think one of the things I massively struggled with, so mum had a mastectomy on one side, couldn't get my head around the fact that she would go to sleep, have an operation, and wake up and her whole body would be different. And I thought, wow, if that was me, I don't know how I'd react to that. Like, my body's always been one way, and I'm going to wake up and be different. And again, my mum like totally wasn't bothered. She was like, I've had 6 children, I've breastfed you all, like, it's, you know, for me it doesn't matter. And I remember like the day before the operation messaging all my sisters and just saying, oh look, like, is anyone else finding this tough? Like, I really can't get my head around the fact that mum's body will change. Not for like my mum, I wasn't worried about how I'd react to her being different, but just how I would feel. you know, you wake up and you're always one way every day of your life, and then all of a sudden it changes. And I think that was a really good kind of opener, because we then started chatting more about kind of the more in-depth stuff, and we'd have conversations that we probably wouldn't have previously had. So that was really kind of good. And actually a lot of them were like, oh yeah, I hadn't really thought about that. Or yeah, just I remember it being a point where I kind of put myself out there a bit and went, hey guys, this is how I feel. And actually that kind of allowed other people maybe to go, okay, yeah, I was thinking about this or that. So yeah, mum had the operation, then she had chemo, then she had radiotherapy. So it was a long process. And then just after she'd finished all of that, we went into lockdown, and then she was put on the shielding list because she'd recently been through treatment. So we'd kind of seen her in between, and you know, we'd had a summer where she'd finished all her treatments. So we had like a little garden party and kind of celebrated the end of like the official treatment. And then she was in shielding. So that just made things a bit complex, you know, when you were told, oh, you're allowed to go and see your family, we still couldn't go. So yeah, that was another tricky layer. And now she's on, like, because it was hormone, like, what's the word?
Hormone induced.
She's still on kind of medication. I think she's just hit 5 years. So she's got another couple of years of medication, but she's doing really well, and all of her scans in between have been clear. And yeah, that's where she's at.
How you all pulled together, and how sacrificial mum is, how, you know, how strong she is to be able to even continue to protect you from it. And
yeah, and she so like one of the things mum was really important to her was that she didn't look unwell. I mean, obviously she was going through chemo, which is so hard on your body, but she didn't want to look unwell. She wanted like us to feel that she was okay, and so she chose to wear a wig because she lost her hair. So her wig she bought, and our hairdresser cut it to like how her hair would be, so lots of people wouldn't kind of even notice she was wearing it, but she always had it on, even in the house. Like, she'd get up in the morning, go to the bathroom, put it on, she'd have it on till she went to bed. We never saw her without hair. We did name the wig because yeah, when we were out and about, it was kind of easier to say, oh, mum, Wilma's moved in the wind, rather than, so yeah, so there was fun in it as well. You know, we do find the joy and the fun in most things. So there was giggles and laughs and jokes going around at the same time.
And as a family, how do you think it changed you all, the dynamics?
Yeah, I think my mum has, just been so much more kind of like relaxed and peaceful with things. You know, whereas before, like, so for example, the wedding that's coming up this weekend would have been like, oh, okay, we've got to do this, we've got to do that. And obviously there is an element of that, but equally it's about time and, you know, spending time with people, and everything doesn't have to be perfect. And, you know, you don't have to have your best cutlery out when someone comes to visit. Just actually that time that you can spend with people, which was always there before, but actually I think that's something that's definitely changed. And just the outlook of kind of making the most of kind of your time with friends, with family. Yeah, I think that's kind of definitely changed for mum. In terms of the rest of us, I think the biggest thing is the conversations that we now have that we probably weren't having before. Yeah, like we've always been really close, but actually to kind of say a bit more, I mean, about how we're feeling. All of us kind of hold stuff tightly, but to kind of say, oh, actually this is going on, or I was thinking about this, or.
And I remember you being really instrumental in making that start with your sisters.
Yeah, well, maybe that's my that's my view on it. They might have another view.
Sometimes it just takes one person, doesn't it? You know, maybe they all had feelings, didn't know how to say it because that just wasn't the way it was done in the family. And that's okay. I've got something to say too. And me.
Yeah, and me over here. Wait.
And how did Zoe take it? Being the youngest.
Yeah, I mean, I think she found it really hard. Obviously, she was still living at home full time, you know, and mum was very much like still involved in doing lots for her, and taxiing. My mum was always a great taxi. So all of those things kind of impacted, but one of my older sisters lived at home, and I think she took on doing quite a lot of that for her. Yeah, I think they, the sisters that were at home and Zoe saw the impact more because their lives changed, like their day-to-day lives changed a bit more when mum was having treatment or coming back from appointments and things like that. I've never like specifically asked everybody, which would be an interesting conversation.
It's another podcast.
Yeah.
And so you're all getting past that, mum getting stronger, mum getting the all clear, but then the family was hit with another blow. What happened?
I think it was 2022. My oldest sister was diagnosed with breast cancer. So that, I don't know, like obviously it'd been quite a long time since my mum had finished treatment, but we were all kind of still kind of processing that. I think at the time we just kind of did it. You just kind of muddle through, you take every day, day by day. But then the processing that came after that was still happening. And then she, told us that she'd been diagnosed, and we were like, oh, okay, we've got to do this again. And she kind of dropped it into a conversation really casually. Me and the sister that I live with were at home and for the weekend, and we were eating breakfast, and she came down and said, oh, I've got an appointment today, I've got a scan, like I found a lump, they think it's cancer. And we were kind of mid, eating breakfast, like, okay. And she said, oh, I haven't told Zoe yet because she was sitting exams at the time. And she said, I like want her to be able to focus on her exams because she's almost finished, rather than like worrying about me. So we were like, okay, so kind of processing this, and Zoe comes down the stairs, and we're like, okay, so we don't talk about it. So we actually then, me and my sister travelled back to Cheltenham that evening, and so we talked about it a lot in the car because we hadn't really had the kind of space to do that. And just, I think the biggest feeling was just like, oh, okay, here we go again. So that was just tricky in that we thought we'd just kind of finalised things with mum, and then it was starting again. And because my sister was so young, that kind of influenced things in a different way because it was hormone induced. And well, they didn't know at the time, they didn't know whether it was kind of a genetic link, but just her treatment looked different because of her age and ability to have children or not have children, and all of those extra things and those extra layers, which kind of we didn't really have to think about with my mum because she was post-children age, and she was like, it's okay, like I don't need the hormones and whatever. For my sister it was very different. And so I think I know I really struggled with that because I was thinking, again, if that was me, I'm being told that that they don't know how this treatment's going to affect me, and I need the treatment, but equally, am I going to be able to have children, and all of those things that, I mean, for us, that was what we always thought. We'd grow up, we'd get married, we'd have children. That's kind of our kind of path. And then to kind of be told, well, you might not be able to, I was like, I don't know how I'd cope with that. And I think my sister kind of put her head down and knew she had to do it. So she had the treatment. She did freeze some eggs, which is kind of a like silver lining. So there was all those extra bits that we hadn't really had to experience with mum. So she had extra appointments for that, and to work out kind of what that would look like and how that's a whole process in itself. And her body had to do a lot more than it would have had to. So she had an operation. She then had chemo. She then had radiotherapy. And they kind of said to her, oh, we don't really know whether you need the chemo and the radiotherapy. Like it would be beneficial, but like they caught it really early. So it's kind of it's your choice basically, whether you have it or not, because it might be of benefit, but equally it might not. And she was like, how do I decide what to do? How do I decide whether I put my body through this or not? And in the end, she was like, look, what would you do? To the doctors. And they were like, well, we never know. We never know what benefit it might have. So she did decide to have it as like a just in case situation. So yeah, she had the treatment. She's now so she's finished that, but she's now on hormone therapy to reduce her, or the right hormones. But that's put her in medical menopause. So again, at the age of 35, that's quite tricky. One, with all the symptoms that comes with, but two, with the implications of that for the future. And they haven't said that it's impossible for her to have children. Like, she has to be on this medication for so many years, and then it kind of gets to a point where it's still having a benefit, but it's not having as much benefit. So there may be a window where she can kind of have children, but equally they can't guarantee that her body will wake back up. So there's a lot of unknown, a lot of stuff to get your head round. And again, she's done it so well. I don't know how. I think I'd just be a mess in the corner if it was me. And obviously there's lots that she's thinking about, and she's still kind of processing that. And I think in the moment she just had to do the appointments, whereas I think now perhaps she's got more time to process and work out what that looks like and what that means for her going forwards. So yeah, that's kind of an ongoing, although her official treatment's finished, it's kind of ongoing in terms of her extended treatment and what that looks like. We were sitting under the gene testing banner at one point. So they tested my sister because my mum had it as well. And they said that if these tests come back positive, we'll offer your sisters the test too. And so I was like, oh gosh, okay, so if this comes back positive, do I get tested? Do I want to know that I've got the gene? Do I not want to know that I've got the gene? How does that look going forwards and having children? And, if I've got the gene and then I have children, then I pass it on. My head was starting to just go, oh my gosh, there's so much in this. And again, that I always thought, okay, I'll grow up, I'll get married, I'll have children. Now that is kind of wobbling, and I don't really know how to get my head around that. And so I think it's 12 weeks from the test to the results. And the day before we were supposed to get the results, they rang my sister and said that her blood test had never made it to the lab, so she'd have to have another one. So we then did another 12 weeks of waiting, which was a long time. And again, yeah, I guess it just kind of prolonged that thinking. And we were all still doing our day to day. I was still working, I was still doing everything, but occasionally I just have this thought of, oh gosh, what's that going to look like? What will I do if that comes back? And I was actually visiting the day that she went to get her results. So she went off to the hospital with my mum, and I think I sat in Waitrose Cafe, waiting for them to come back. And she kind of came back and sat down, and she just said, they're all clear. And I was like, sorry, what? Because I think I'd convinced myself that it was going to be positive because my mum had had it, because she'd had it, because she was young. They said actually that, having it that young was probably a genetic thing. So we left Waitrose, we went to a garden centre, and we were wandering around, and I could not concentrate at all. I was just I think it was before Christmas, and there was all these decorations, and and I was just aimlessly wandering around. My sister was like, oh, look at this, oh look, we could get this for this person. And I was thinking, what? And in the end I just stood in the garden centre and just cried, and I was like, I can't concentrate. I said, my brain can't compute this. It's so much relief. I just couldn't get my head around it. So we went and sat in the cafe for a bit instead. And I knew that it had been I knew it had been on my mind, and I knew that I'd been thinking about it. And although I was getting on with things, I knew it was an issue. But then when she then finally said they've all come back clear, I then think I realised how much I'd been holding that and worrying about it, and subconsciously trying to plan what life could be like and what decisions I'd have to make or not make. And then also, because we're all girls, that could have spread through all of us. And and what happens if some of us have got the gene and some of us haven't? Like, how do we manage that? Like, I'd rather be one of the ones that have got the gene to save one of the others from having it, and how, you know, how do we manage that, and how will people, just so much in it. And so when she kind of said we haven't got it, I was like, okay. And it's taken quite a long time to process all those thoughts and things that were going on and work out what that
there seems like a lot of times that you've put yourself in their shoes to imagine what it would be like, you know, mum's body changing and then your sister getting it and then the gene, and it's jumping into that pot
and I think as a person I naturally do that. Like, I naturally kind of sponge up other people's stuff, but I think because we're all so close, that makes a difference as well. Like, we're all sisters. I've never had a brother. I don't know what that's like, but for us, our sister relationship is, you know, we are fiercely protective of each other. And so to think almost like what they're feeling, I feel. So, you know, if they're hurting, I'm hurting. If they're having this issue going on, I want to try and help. I think there's a lot of that because we are so tight.
That's one.
A little tribe.
You know, that's an incredible story. There's a lot of stuff that you've all gone through, and so much for a family to have to hold with going through it twice as well. What advice would you give for families that are going through something similar to what you've gone through?
That's a big question. I think, as much as you can, like, sharing the worries and the concerns, and like, we didn't kind of slide into that naturally, but kind of having those conversations. You know, I didn't share with my sisters in the craziness about what I was feeling about the gene testing. It was only afterwards that I was like, oh gosh, and I was really stressing about it. But kind of having those conversations, because it's likely that someone else is feeling the same. And if they're not, they can offer their perspective and say, oh, but have you thought about it this way? And like, it's so easy to get tied up in your own thoughts and your own thinking. For someone else to just throw something in to kind of break that is really helpful. And I think, like, seeing the joy in things, we really find the joy in the small. And I think that's been something that's really helped, you know, throughout all of that, is just seeking the little moments of joy, finding that quiet moment where you go for a walk, or you listen to the birds sing, or you have a cup of tea with a friend and you laugh. You know, holding on to all of those like little moments amongst the bigger stuff is really useful, and kind of keeps you going when the world feels a bit unknown and upside down.
And here you are now, all transiting that with a lovely joyous day this weekend. Which all of you will certainly have some existential moments of, we're all here when we're all supporting our sister. Which sister is getting married?
Katrina. So she's one of the twins. So I think there's going to be. We've already asked the makeup lady if the mascara is waterproof, because I think it is going to be totally lovely and totally celebrating them, but a big family moment in the same
a big
time.
Exhale. Yeah. Well, thank you very much for sharing all that, Claire. You have been through a lot. You were going through a lot with me, and since then have continued to go through a lot. And sitting here watching you in front of me now, you are so strong, and I can see everything that you've learned has helped you to give you the life that you deserve, to have pulled yourself from where you were to now. Well done, you. And it was a real pleasure sharing your journey for that short time. Thank you for your insight. I'm sure that it will help others out there, that there is a way through and a way of managing and a way of supporting. But thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Okay. Till next time. Okay. Thank you very much, Claire. Take care. Bye.